Hi, Pete Frandano here, author of Endurance Real Estate. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Hey, this presentation, Endurance, Business, Life, what's the connection? Well, I've been fortunate to give this presentation to several groups over the past few months as we continue to open up and come out of this pandemic. Right off the bat, let me just say, hey, I'm better in person, but I realize that some of you may not be able to travel now. Maybe some of you just simply don't have the means to bring me in or whatever, or you just don't have time to go to one of my presentations. Well, that's why I put this together. I also have a podcast if you're one of those folks that likes to listen to stuff on the go. So it's out there in podcast format as well on my You Got 2 Minutes podcast. Obviously, I hope that you end up buying my book for yourself or for someone else in your world. I mean, heck, chapter 12, Where the Rubber Meets the Road, is worth the price of admission, in my humble opinion, in and of itself. But even if you don't buy the book, I'm hoping that this presentation or my podcast will help you cross your finish lines in your business or in your life. So let's get started. Thanks again for joining me today. So the roadmap, and it's a brief one. The book, The Journey, a little bit about my book, my time in Fortune 500 land with my two awesome companies, Haynes Textiles and then Avery Dennison, my road to endurance real estate, my dive out of that into our awesome real estate industry in pursuit of my small business ownership dreams and more time with my family, my encounter with that buzzsaw called the Great Recession, the tsunami, and then some of my lessons learned along the way, and then what's the connection? And then we're going to wrap it up. So the book started out as a chronicle for my sons. I call it my If Dad Got Hit by a Bus document. My then 18-year-old, who's 22 now, was talking to me about his mentors. He said, Dad, I've got these online mentors. I've got Gary Vaynerchuk, I've got Ty Lopez, I've got Grant Cardone, but I need mentors. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what the heck am I, son, chopped liver? But as you know, sometimes our kids don't listen to us. But my two sons are voracious consumers of information, they're readers, and I thought to myself, what if I put this stuff into a book? Maybe they'll read it. I've had the benefit of having some pretty unique experiences in my 30 years combined in the Fortune 500 and real estate arenas. So started out there, and then some friends and colleagues got wind of what I was doing, and they said, hey, Pete, some others might benefit from your experience. So it evolved from there. In the book, I talk about this concept called two: time, experience, and wisdom. In my life, I've had the benefit of having some amazing mentors, people that have given these three words to me: time, experience, and wisdom, something that they've shared selflessly with me. If you can save me time, if you can maybe save me heartache, if maybe you can save me money by putting up guardrails and helping prevent me from driving over a cliff, maybe you put money in my pocket by providing me with your time, experience, and wisdom, which equates to food on the table for my family. Well, there aren't many gifts to me greater than the gift of two, and that's certainly part of what I'm hoping to do with this book for others. The book is definitely real estate centric, but it's certainly not all about real estate. And then look, one of my realizations along this journey, the book writing journey, is we each have a story to tell, and only we can tell it. I mean, it's your business, it's your life. Who would benefit from your buried treasure in whatever format you choose to share it? So come with me, if you will, to 1990. I was starting out with Haynes Textiles in the mountains of Galax, Virginia. It's where all the Haynes men's t-shirts in the entire world were produced. I was one of 6 management trainees that year. I was the outlier. I was the Carolina person. There were 5 NC State folks. We had a blast in the management training program. It was about a year long, and you worked through the entire plant's operation. You worked every single department, worked every single process, and then the capstone is managing a night shift with a great team. So I had about 100-person team. I was in about month 3 of my night shift gig, And one morning over the intercom, I hear Pete Frandano come to the front office, Pete Frandano, and I realize it's Willard Bullens, our director of manufacturing, calling me up front. Willard is a great guy. He was a hero of mine, very charismatic. He's a huge reason why I was at Haynes. But 6:30 in the morning, Willard calling me up front. I was thinking to myself, what have I done? He's getting ready to can me or something. I had no idea why I was being called up front. So I get up front. Willard's got a big smile on his face, and he puts me right at ease. And he says, "Hey, Pete, we're going to start embarking on this journey called NAFTA." He said, "We're going to pull you off night shift. We're going to give you a promotion. We're going to send you to Jamaica a couple times a month, and you're going to lead our logistics initiative over the next year. What do you think?" And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. I'm 23 years old. Get this straight. You're pulling me off night shift. You're going to ship me to Jamaica, make me stay in our company townhome once or twice a month. Where do I sign? So that was the beginning of my embarkation into the world of logistics. As you and I both know, the textile world got hammered over the coming years. It was brutal. We shut 43 or so factories down in about 3 years. I knew plenty of folks that got hurt in the industry. I was very fortunate. I jumped over to distribution. I knew that wasn't going anywhere, but it was a tough time in the textile business, and I'm grateful to see it coming back now. 1999 is what I call my year of 1,000 home runs. That was the year that my eldest son was born. I was wrapping up business school at night while I was still with Haynes, managing a flagship distribution center, Haynes Herway Distribution Center there in Winston-Salem. And then Avery Dennison came calling. I call it Hello Hong Kong. My first day on the job with Avery Dennison was actually on a plane going to Hong Kong. They recruited me away on 25% travel. No one would have ever known it was going to morph into 100% travel. That was just the nature of the beast. But Avery's business model was connecting the mothership, Walmart, Target, Nike, to their contract factories offshore. So they were rolling with the offshore trend, and I was in. So I bet you'll agree that sometimes in life we either have temporary redirects or sometimes we have permanent redirects on the course of our life. Maybe curveballs that are thrown at us that redirect uh, the trajectory of our life. Well, that was my year in 2001. I call it my year of right turns, and I had two right turns that year. The first one, my cousin Jeff and I grew up together in Charlotte. He was like a brother to me. On Easter Sunday, he lived out in Jackson, Wyoming, beautiful Jackson. He went for a cycling ride, and unfortunately, we lost Jeff cycling accident that day. It was a devastating moment for our entire family, and it was a cold bucket of water on my face that no tomorrow is given. That was right turn number one for me. One of Jeff's beautiful legacies, if you're ever out in Jackson, you'll see these things called pathways around Jackson or pathways around Jenny Lake. That's my cousin Jeff. He was tremendously influential in getting those pathways in. So I know part of my cousin's legacy are those pathways, and he's saving lives every day out there. Hey, come with me to September the 11th, 2001. Who remembers where they were or what they were doing? Raise your hand if you do. Yeah, I see you out there. And I know what I was doing. I was actually in the air going from Boston to Pittsburgh that morning to visit Dick's Sporting Goods logistics team. Uh, there and back, it was just going to be a day trip. And there were times, though, that I was actually on that same flight that went into Tower One. Avery Dennison was based in Pasadena, Glendale. We called it going to Pasadena. There were times that either myself or my colleagues were on that same flight. I found out later that I was about 5 gates down from Muhammad Atta that day. So why I was going to PA and not LA, I have no idea. I do know that I'm one of the lucky ones. I realize we're all the lucky ones and that we'll never forget all the victims from that day and the heroes from that day. So I get to the airport. It's a beautiful day in Boston. Got my workout in. We're on the 727, about 25 of us, circling the city, coming out of Boston airspace. The pilot comes over the intercom and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a strange one. We've been given a security alert. They want us to divert to Rochester." And I'm thinking to myself, Rochester? And I looked at the flight attendant and she shrugged her shoulders at me. The pilot comes on a couple minutes later, says, "Ladies and gentlemen, ground control wants us on the ground now. We're going to Syracuse." So I'm like, here we go. So we buckle in, touchdown. All Hades breaks loose, as you can imagine. We all push down. I'm trying to get to the car rental line because I've got to get back to Boston somehow. And the car rental line is about 2 miles long. And I'm like, okay, I'm toast. An angel yells out, is anybody going to Worcester at about that time? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not the brightest light in the chandelier, but I know there's a Worcester, Massachusetts. I don't know if there's a Worcester, New York. So I throw my hand up, taking a chance, and I hit the lottery. Linda, a GSA employee, had procured a car, and she was kind enough to realize that others were going to be in the same boat that she was in. So Linda, Peter, David, and myself, Pete, all four complete strangers that day in the beginning, by the end of that day, were no longer strangers. I got back to my company townhome that night, and that's when it set in on me. That was right turn number two, and I felt, hey, somebody's trying to send me messages. I decided at that point it was time for me to pursue a different course in my life. I was missing my son grow up, and I'm thinking to myself, it's time to do something different. So I decided I was going to try and purchase a business. We set out on our due diligence. I found our awesome real estate industry. I met Marianne Russ, who owns Southport Realty down in beautiful Southport, North Carolina. It reminded me of Maine without the winters. So through a friend of mine in Charlotte, had introduced me to Marianne. It turns out that she wanted somebody to join her firm to start the commercial division of her firm. So I was in and I was off and running. So yes, Southport bound we were. And I was thrilled to be off and running. But picture this corporate guy the night before the movers got there in Greensboro. Remember, I was based in Boston, but my family was in Greensboro, and I was bouncing from Boston to Hong Kong to all points Europe and all over the place. So in Greensboro, the night before the movers got there, I'm staring at the ceiling fan, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world have you done to your family? You idiot. You're leaving this corporate cushy job and you haven't even passed your real estate licensing exam. Well, let it be noted that I did soon thereafter pass my licensing exam, and we were off and running, and I was thrilled. 2003 to 2006. Hey, I bet you didn't know that you were in the presence of a genius, did you? Yep, you're looking at him. That was me. You know, during that time period, if you were in the real estate industry, it was hard to miss. I mean, it was like picking gold up off the streets. I thought to myself, I should have done this a long time ago. It did make us look like geniuses, but picture that roller coaster, click, 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 going up. Yeah, that was definitely me. Fall of 2006, Marianne Russ came to me and she said, young man, I've been in this business as long as you've been alive. John and I want to travel the globe. Do you want to buy the company with my daughter? So we did. We were in. So yes, a small business owner is born. Great time to buy a real estate company, but we were lucky we had a great team. But you know what happened next. So yes, 2008, right over the cliff we went. September and October of 2008 was the worst financial crisis in global history, including the Great Depression. That's from our former Fed chair, Ben Bernanke. It was definitely the earthquake that set things off, and it was my what just happened moment. That's me in the lower left there, sweating bullets, thinking to myself, what in the world have you just done to your family, and what are we going to do to survive? I've often said to folks that, hey, we all could have survived that deep cliff dive, but it was that long run along the bottom that was so devastating to so many people. Like you, I'm sure you knew some, but I knew some folks who got wiped out in the fourth quarter of their lives. I knew people who actually took their lives. There were times during that time period that my prayer actually went something like this: Dear God, please don't let me be a burden to those in my world. There were times I would wake up in the morning, I'd look in the mirror, and I'd think to myself, dude, you're worth more dead than you are alive. So when I talk about the abyss, I can say I've been there. I've looked into the abyss. Part of what I'm hoping with the book is that when somebody's reading it, if they're in their personal abyss, if they're running through their personal valleys or pushing through their personal uphill climb, they can think to themselves, hey, Pete pushed through his valley. He made it through his uphill climb to his next peak. I can too. And yes, you can. I've got a saying that when you're standing on the beach, if you look out and you see the tsunami coming, the time for running is long since past. You better be a darn good swimmer. And we were definitely swimming in it then, fighting for survival. So 2011, yes, that's me with a whole heck of a lot more hair. My awesome colleagues at the Brunswick County Association of Realtors were installing me as their president that day. I'm looking out in the room at my teammates and colleagues, and I tell them that, look, if you're here and standing, you've made it. The light at the end of the tunnel is no longer a train, it's actually a light. And now's not the time to throw the towel in. And oh, by the way, you're all endurance athletes, whether you know it or not. And that's true. In this business or any business, in life, and all of it, we're all endurance athletes. It was the same then, and it's the same now. So I want to share my experience running the 40th Marine Corps Marathon with you October 2015 because for me, it does a great job of summarizing the connection between endurance, business, and life. That was a bucket list item for me. I wanted to be out there with all those great Marines. Look, I've never served in the military, never had the privilege, but I've had friends who have, and I'm a huge fan of all they've done for us over the years and all they continue to do. My teammates and I had also raised money for a great organization called Hope for the Warrior. So it was a beautiful morning, beautiful fall morning. I'm clicking along mile 5, mile 6, about a 7.5 minute pace. Mile 8 hits and pop. Now look, I've never been shot and I don't want to be, but that pop felt like what I would envision being shot would feel like. Running 18.2 miles is challenging enough, as you and I both know, but running 18.2 miles with a blown out hip is not something I would recommend to anyone. So my immediate thought is, oh no, I'm getting ready to let these Marines down that I'm out here with. I'm getting ready to let all the folks we've raised money for down. As you and I both know, sometimes in life when you're doing stuff for others or reaching outside of yourself, you tend to reach a little bit deeper. Well, that's where my head was. My second thought was, man, this hurts. This is like pass out level pain. So I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get through this? And I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I look up ahead and I see this, not this exact person, but I can tell he's a Marine. I see the Semper Fi on his back, and I'm wondering how I'm gaining on him. And I look up ahead, and as I look down, I can see his prosthetic leg. So that's get over yourself. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Moment number one. If you've ever been around the Marine Corps Marathon, then you know about mile 12. It's called the Blue Mile. The rest of the event is a rock concert like event, but the Blue Mile is sacred, hallowed ground and it drops to a hush level. On either side of the street for the first half of the Blue Mile, you see this on either side of the street. It's portraits, stunning portraits of the Marine fallen. The second half of the Blue Mile, you see this on either side of the street, and it's friends and family of those fallen cheering for us. I come out of the Blue Mile, I'm thinking, you're cheering for us, we should be cheering for you. I've got tears streaming down my face, and now it's not just because of the pain, but because of what I've seen. My hip is now more gone than it was before, and I'm still thinking to myself, how am I going to get through this? And mile 14 turns to 15. I look up ahead and I see this. Now he's got a white shirt on and a camo hat from what I can remember, and he's barking something at us maniacally. He's like a Marine drill sergeant. He's waving maniacally in the direction of the course, and I can't hear what he's saying, but as I approach him, it finally becomes clear, and it's this. 1 foot in front of the other will get you home. Now I remember looking up and thinking, thank you. He just gave me my answer. That's how I'm going to get through this. 1 foot in front of the other will get you home. You know, often in business and life, when I've overcomplicated things, I've found that when I put my head down and put 1 foot in front of the other, it does get me home. You know, I don't beat anybody up with my faith. I'm not a priest. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a rabbi. But I'm 53 years old, and it's taken me about 50 years to realize this. I'm a little bit dense, but there have been times in my life when I've wondered how I got through certain events that I've looked back and I realized I was carried. I was carried. That there hasn't been one event, one cross finish line in my life I've gone through that I haven't had the help of someone or some being along the way help me across that finish line. Of course, I had to exert my own energy and effort, but somewhere along the way, someone helped me. Well, that's great, Pete. So what's the point? Well, here's the point. Some like to say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Well, I say it's a marathon and a sprint, and I darn well better recognize when I'm running a marathon or I may not cross the finish line. I mean, go with me on this. A marathon's easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's physically and mentally grueling, of course, but hey, at least when I'm running a marathon, I know I'm in it, right? I've planned for it, I've trained it, I strategized for it. I hit my 20-mile training run a few weeks ago. I know I'm in it. Well, what if I don't know I'm running a marathon? What if I'm a small business owner looking into the abyss? Or what if I'm a manager or a leader of a company or in economic development? Or what if I'm a student? Or what if I'm a caregiver for a family member in their final days? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you being good to yourself? Are you putting one foot in front of the other so you can get home, so you can cross your finish line, so you can make your adjustments in your valley or your uphill to get to your next peak? I've found in life, again, it's taken me years to realize this too, that some of the best endurance athletes I know have never run one marathon or participated in one triathlon. And that to me is the connection between endurance, business, and life. So humbled and grateful for sure. That Marine Corps marathon was the slowest yet most gratifying event I have ever participated in. That's my teammates and I in the upper left. I actually did finish that day. I had to drag across, but I finished. That's Dr. Bo Mason, my miracle worker in the lower left, after he had performed his hip surgery on me to fix my hip. And then, yes, 2020, I was grateful to cross the book finish line with Endurance Real Estate. And what a strange year for all of us. Brutal year. Um, I'm just, I have no words to describe that. I lost a few folks. I'm sure some of you did as well. We're all fighting for survival for our friends, our family, our clients, but I'm grateful that we're all here together. And yes, business and life, it's a marathon and a sprint, but certainly mostly a marathon. So a few of my lessons that have been reinforced for me on my book journey. You have a story to tell, and only you can tell it. Who would benefit from your buried treasure? What's your story? In whatever form you choose to tell it. We're all endurance athletes in business, life, all of it. Hey, the valleys and the uphills, they're going to come, but we've got choices. I've got an acronym, TUFRA: treat, face, react, attack. How do we treat, face, react, and attack those valleys and uphill climbs when we experience them? Run your own race, measure your own curve. I've often found also that outside of my comfort zone lies some of my best opportunities and cross finish lines. And then the marathon, recognize when you're running one, adjust your pace and cross your finish lines, or help someone else recognize when they're running one. They may not know that they're running a marathon. Maybe you can help them. During my book writing journey, I had someone say, "Hey, Pete, what are the 3 things you want me to take away from your book in case I don't have time to read the book right now?" Well, that's easy. This endurance life chart, uh, both the blank version and my filled in version, are out on the website for you to download. It's just a simple tool to help remind me to keep things simple. But the 3 things, first thing is invest in You Inc. I would venture to say that an investment in You Inc. is probably the best investment you can make, right? I mean, it's something that no one can ever take away from you. Thing number 2, you're the CEO of You Inc. What are you doing every single day to advance your ball, your agenda, to cross your finish line? Some like to say, keep it simple, stupid. Well, to me, KISS is both unrealistic and insulting in this day and age. I've got another acronym called KISSAP, keep it as simple as possible. So that falls into this bucket as well. And then finally, gratitude and attitude. I was participating in an awesome ride with these incredible wounded warriors a few years ago in Oak Island. The sun's coming up out of the Atlantic, and the Marine Lieutenant Colonel who's kicking us off that day said, every day I start with 2 words, gratitude and attitude. The gratitude that I've been given the strength to put my boots on the ground another day, and the attitude to make the most of that day. Well, to me, gratitude and attitude also means, hey, who am I helping cross the finish line? Who am I taking with me across my finish lines? So those are the 3 things. So here's the one thing. I'm wishing you strength and endurance in your valleys and your uphill climbs, and a life filled with awesome peaks and cross finish lines. Thanks for joining me.